Welcome back. This is the Carson Corner Podcast. And so this topic is a very delicate topic. It's about the Golden State Warriors. It's about the conflict that's presently happening. Draymond Green being suspended indefinitely. Stephen A. Smith, Steve Kerr, war words. This is about leadership. And ultimately, should the dynasty end? Should this be the last year that we see Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green on the same team? And as much as it breaks my heart, I believe the answer is yes. When you look at the Bulls of the 90s, it was Jerry Reinsdorf, if I'm not mistaken, that broke up the team. He said that was it. And then the Bulls were really not a good team for a long time, and still to this day, really not a good team. You have the LA Lakers. You have really Magic Johnson. His last run was against the Bulls in 91. Then after that, he made the announcement that he contracted HIV. And so the Lakers for the 90s were a really decent team, but not a championship team until Shaq and Kobe. That dynasty for a couple years. Bad breakup. And those are just a few examples of how dynasties don't end well. And at the end of the day, this is a soliloquy towards really what this is all about. And it's sad to say, the Warriors right now are below 500. Klay Thompson is not playing well. Steve Kerr doesn't seem to be managing very well. Not to say that he can't. I'm not saying that he can't. It just appears that way. It seems as though Draymond Green, he needs help, right? I want to comment on something, and I want you to hear Stephen A. Smith first. I want you to hear what Stephen A. Smith speaks about leadership and how he puts that leadership role on individuals. And if you got comments, put it in the comment section. Let me know if you agree or disagree or indifferent, however. But I have some things I want to say. I have some things I want to say about leadership and my perspective on it and how leadership actually influences the dynamic of a team. Okay?
This is the problem, okay? Steve Kerr, no one is questioning Steph Curry as a leader. What we said was, quote, if that were LeBron James, we would have said, where are you? So in this particular instance, we're not talking about behind the scenes. We're talking out front and center. We were asking Steph Curry, where are you on this? Because you're such a great leader, because you're such a phenomenal individual, because you're the closest thing to perfection that I think most of us have ever seen as a professional athlete, we're asking about the impact that you've seemingly been unable to have on a teammate who loves and reveres you like Draymond Green. But Steve Kerr twisted it. Because we want to sit up there, he wanted, I don't even want to use the words. You understand that I'm tempted to in terms of him fawning over Steph Curry. We all fawn over Steph Curry. Why would you try to twist it like that? You trying to tell me that Steph Curry's not a human being? That every single thing about him is absolutely positively perfect, that we can't sit here while revering him and respecting him and appreciating everything about him. We can't simply sit here and say, yo, you of all people, you might be able to have an impact on Draymond Green. Whether we're right or wrong in that, I'm just talking about speculating about that because of the phenomenal person, athlete, professional that Steph Curry has proven to be.
So you just heard Stephen A. Smith go in at Steve Kerr. You know, whether you agree or disagree, my biggest qualm comes from Stephen A. Smith talking about leadership. And so this is my perspective. 23 years, United States Army, retired commissioned officer. I was enlisted both an officer. When it comes to leadership is about influence, right? And your influence can be positive or negative. And if you are able to, provide an influence, the other part of that equation is somebody willing to accept your influence. And it's evident that right now that Draymond Green, though he respects Steph, though he respects Klay, though he respects Steve Kerr, that the influence is not impacting because he doesn't have a willingness to accept it. He still wants to do what he wants to do, right? And so when people say you should have some influence over the situation, as a leader, you understand how that comes across. When you ask that question or you make that statement, you make the statement very nonchalantly like, well, we're just speculating over it. No, a true leader, those at ESPN did, the ones that we don't see are the ones who revamped the sports show, replaced Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Will, and Max with unsportsmanlike, with a great crew, a great cast, morning show. That's leadership. They saw where one show was going, replaced it with a new show, and it's a hit. That's leadership. Just because you're a face of a show doesn't mean that you're a leader. It means that your product is making numbers, but it doesn't make you a leader. A true leader understands that whether I impact this person or not, I still got to perform my job. I still got to perform my duties, right? You can't go into a situation and say, well, why is your leadership is not working, right? Your leadership is not working. The other person has to be willing to accept your leadership. That doesn't make you a bad leader. Now, from an organizational standpoint, if you want to say that Golden State dropped the ball and Golden State gave Draymond Green more room to hang himself regardless, I can understand that. Like at the end of the day, when you have someone of that stature that helped you win 4 championships, the organization knows Draymond Green from a standpoint where they know him behind the curtains. They know him off the court. They know how he is with his wife. They know how he is with his kids. They know how he is with his friends, right? So that could be a viable reason. And again, from a leadership standpoint, when you get to know your subordinates or you get to know the people you work with, right? You create an association and then it becomes somewhat arduous, not difficult, but it becomes somewhat arduous, right? You want to lay the hammer down. You know you need to lay the hammer down, but it's like, how do I lay the hammer down, right? And still keep this association because I respect this person, right? And that is my perspective on what I see with Golden State. That's my perspective of what I see, that they have allowed Draymond Green to go to an extent. They've allowed Draymond Green to go to a point to where it's like, now we need to do something. And to a degree, I agree that it may have been a little bit too late, right? I was going to say something, but I'm going to hold it back because then I get negative comments and so forth. But the Jordan Poole situation, I have a different take on it. I'll just say that. I have a whole different take on it because Jordan Poole is proven why Golden State got rid of him. Bottom line. So I'll go back. But we right now, to put it all together, we have this dynamic where I have now come to the conclusion that I believe this is the last year that Steve Kerr, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green should all be on the same court. I think that Golden State should cut its ties and start fresh, start anew, and start trading. I'll be transparent with you. If you can trade Klay Thompson now and get a draft pick and some good pieces, do it. If you could trade Draymond Green once he comes back, do it. This is a lost year. And you can see it now. And maybe Joe Lacob, the majority owner of the Golden State Warriors, is probably not ready to do it. Mike Dunleavy Jr., general manager, I think it's time to cut those ties. The dynasty is done. It's okay to say it's done. Steve Kerr is a Hall of Fame coach. Steve Kerr is going to go to the Hall of Fame as a 4-time champion. Draymond Green is going to go to the Hall of Fame as a 4-time champion. Klay Thompson is going to go into the Hall of Fame as a 4-time champion. Steph Curry is going to go to the Hall of Fame as a 4-time champion. And I think that we have seen the end. It may have been last year, but this year is the definite year to show, and it's showing that it's time to radically change the Golden State Warriors. And the war of words between Steve Kerr and Stephen A. Smith, all of this is encompassing basically the end of the Golden State Warriors. Tell me what you think. Put it in the comments below. Tell me what you think. I personally and professionally, as someone who has a PhD in psychology, I'm telling you that this right here is the end. And really, before you go into the summer, you should already start cutting ties, start having replacements, right? Start bringing in a fresh crew, right? And really going in a different direction and get Steph Curry used to that, because that's your franchise player and he doesn't seem to be falling off. He seems to have a couple more great years in him. And so you need to build around him and build a new dynamic. And maybe it's time for Steve Kerr to move forward, to move on to something else. Maybe it's time for Draymond Green to move on. Maybe it's time for Klay Thompson to have a new environment. Maybe it's time. We've seen and celebrated the rise and the fall, the ups and downs of Golden State. And as hard as it is to say it, I truly believe this is the end, ladies and gentlemen. So, with that being said, this is the Carson Corner Podcast, and as I always ended, I'm rich.